Welcome back to the deep dive. So today we are digging into a stack of sources that deals with a very specific, very modern type of anxiety. You know that feeling? When you're staring at a blinking cursor, trying to update your LinkedIn profile.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe you're at some networking event, someone asks, so what do you do? And you just feel this sudden, immense pressure.
The elevator pitch panic, it's universal.
Exactly. It's this feeling that we are only as valuable as our last achievement. We spend our lives, curating this list skills, milestones, titles, to prove that we're enough.
They were qualified for the next room.
Right. But the research and theological commentary we're covering today argues that this entire framework, what they call resume logic, is actually completely backward when it comes to how biblical calling works.
It's a huge claim.
Yeah, the headline for this deep dive is essentially, God calls names, not resumes.
It's a catchy title, but the sources we have today are actually pretty heavy. We're looking at some Old Testament scholarship on naming, some contemporary essays on, like, vocational burnout.
And that Hebrew word, Hineni.
Right, and theological breakdowns of Hineni. And the consensus across all of them is that we have confused our career with our calling.
And that confusion is apparently fueling a massive amount of burnout.
It is, because, think about how the corporate world operates. It's a model where performance precedes permission.
You have to prove you can do the job.
You show the credentials, you show the track record, and then you get the title. Then you get access.
Okay.
And the sources argue that in the divine model, that flow is reversed. Identity comes first, the assignment is secondary.
So our mission today is to unpack this idea of identity before assignment. We need to figure out why we're so obsessed with the resume model, look at how this ancient theology just disrupts it.
And hopefully offer a different way to view our work.
Let's start with that contrast the sources draw between the corporate model and what they're calling the divine model.
So as we said, the corporate model is transactional. It relies on credentialed access.
Right. I show my value, my degree, my past projects, my sales numbers.
And if they're good enough, you're granted access. You're trusted with the mission because you've proven you can handle it.
Which, to be fair, makes total sense in a secular context. I don't want a surgeon operating on me just because they feel called to it.
No, absolutely not.
I want to see the medical degree.
Of course. In the functional world, resumes are necessary. Competence matters. The problem, according to these authors, is when we import that mechanism into our spiritual value.
Into our sense of purpose.
Exactly. We start thinking, if I don't have the skills, God can't use me. Or, maybe more dangerously, if I'm not successful and visible, I have no purpose.
We internalize the transaction. If I'm not performing, I'm not valid. Yeah. But the sources say Scripture just interrupts this. How?
By establishing the relationship before the job description is ever handed out. The pattern in the texts is pretty consistent. God summons a person, establishes a covenant bond with them, and then, often much later, explains what they're actually supposed to do.
So he doesn't say, submit your portfolio for the Exodus project and we'll let you know.
No, he doesn't recruit human capital or resources. He summons a person, a self. And this is where we have to get into the weeds of the ancient Near East context.
Because names meant something totally different.
Completely different. To us, a name is just a label. It's a tag.
A way to get someone's attention.
Right. But in the biblical context, a name was your essence. It spoke to your destiny, your character. But even more, the act of calling someone by name was a claim of ownership.
Okay.
The sources use this specific phrase, covenantal declaration.
That sounds intense. Break that down for us.
Well, think about a contract versus a covenant. A contract is based on performance. If you stop performing...
The contract is void.
Exactly. A covenant is based on relationship. It's binding regardless of performance. So when God calls Abraham or Moses, he isn't just identifying them. He's saying, I have called you by name. You are mine.
So the identity is secured before any work begins.
That's the key.
That's a huge distinction. Because if the call is functional first, if I'm called to do a task, then if I fail at the task, I lose the calling.
You lose your place. And that is the root of so much anxiety. If my calling is to be a successful pastor or to run a nonprofit, and I fail, I have an identity crisis.
Like I've been fired by God.
Right. But if the calling is relational first, you are mine, then the foundation holds even if the function fails.
The sources had a great line about this. God does not recruit skill sets. He summons selves.
Yeah, it changes the whole dynamic. He's looking for a who, not a what.
Okay, But I want to push back a little because that sounds beautiful, but the stories themselves are messy.
They are very messy.
They aren't these smooth moments. So the sources give us what they call case studies in anti-resume calling.
They are messy, you're right. And the mess is sort of the point. They highlight two major figures, Moses and Abraham.
Let's start with Moses. This is the big one. Burning bush, Exodus. But the sources focus on the moment right before all that.
Yeah, right before he accepts the job. And the context here is key. Moses isn't some fresh graduate. He's 80 years old.
Yeah.
A fugitive.
He has the Egyptian education on his resume, but then he killed a guy and fled.
Right. And he's been hiding in the wilderness for 40 years working as a shepherd.
Which, as the notes point out, was a job that his former culture, the Egyptians, they thought was an abomination.
Exactly. So he's socially demoted. His identity is fractured. If you look at his resume, there is a massive employment gap, a criminal record. He is not a candidate for liberator of a nation.
So the interaction starts. God calls him from the bush, Moses, Moses.
And the sources highlight that repetition. In Hebrew narrative, when a name is doubled like that, Abraham, Abraham, Samuel, Samuel, it signals deep affection and urgency.
It's an intimate summons.
Very. God sees him. He doesn't call him by his title. He doesn't say, hey, shepherd, or hey, prince. He calls the person.
But Moses doesn't hear the affection, does he? He immediately defaults to resume logic.
He does. He starts arguing. He says, who am I that I should go? And I am slow of speech and tongue. He's looking at his skills gap.
He's doing a SWOT analysis on himself and coming up with nothing.
Right. You have the wrong guy because I don't have the communication competencies for this role.
And this is what I found so fascinating in the reading. God doesn't disagree with him.
No, he doesn't. That's the wild part. God doesn't say, actually, Moses, you're a great speaker. You just have imposter syndrome.
Right, let's do some affirmations.
No. He ignores the skills gap entirely. When Moses says, I'm not qualified, God essentially says that is irrelevant. God's rebuttal is simply, I will be with you.
That's the anti-resume move. The qualification isn't in the candidate, it's in the employer's presence.
Precisely. The source material emphasizes this. God calls the known, not the qualified. Moses' insecurity was rooted in looking at his own empty hands. God's calling was pointing to his own presence. It's a complete override.
It renders the resume useless,
Yeah,
which is both freeing and also kind of insulting to our egos.
it is. We want to be chosen because we're good at stuff. We want to be headhunted for our talent.
Being chosen just because God loves us feels, I don't know, like nepotism.
It is divine nepotism. We are adopted children. And that requires a lot of humility.
So that's Moses. But the second case study is Abraham. And this one is different because at least Moses knew the mission. Abraham didn't even get a mission brief.
No. Genesis 12, God just tells Abraham to go. That's it. And the destination. To the land I will show you.
We'll show. Future tense.
Future tense. He doesn't get the map. He gets a direction. Leave everything you know, your whole security system, and go somewhere.
I was thinking about this. If I went to a VC and said, I have a great project, I need $10 million, I can't tell you what it is or where we're going, but just trust me, I'd be laughed out of the room.
You'd be escorted out by security.
Mm.
Corporate logic demands the roadmap, the
Yeah.
5-year plan. But the sources make a really profound point here. God values availability over productivity.
Availability over productivity, that's so hard for high achievers to hear.
It's incredibly hard. But think about the alternative. If God gave Abraham the full map, that you're going to Canaan, there will be a famine, then a war, then a kid at 100.
Then Abraham's faith would just be agreement with a plan. It becomes transactional.
Exactly. I approve this itinerary. Looks viable, I'll execute.
Mm.
But by withholding the map, God ensures the faith stays relational. Abraham has to trust the person guiding him.
Because he has no idea where the path goes.
Right. The sources use this beautiful metaphor of walking by starlight versus a floodlight.
I highlighted that, unpacked that a little.
A floodlight shows you the whole valley. You see the destination, the obstacles, the cliff edges. You feel in control. A lamp or starlight, it only eliminates the next step.
So you have enough light to obey right now.
But not enough to control the future. And that lack of control creates dependence. You have to stay close to the light source.
So we have Moses arguing about his skills, Abraham walking without a map. Both are being forced out of resume thinking, which leads us to the core linguistic concept of this whole deep dive.
Yes.
This Hebrew word, Hineni.
Hineni. It is one of the most powerful words in the Hebrew Bible.
It's usually translated as, here I am, which to my modern ear just sounds like a roll call.
Right, like present. But Hineni is so much heavier than that. It's not just about your geographical location. It's a statement of disposition.
What does that mean?
It means I am here, ready, listening, and attentive.
The classic example is Isaiah 6, right?
Yes. Isaiah has this terrifying vision of God in the temple. And God asks, "Whom shall I send? And who will go for us?"
And Isaiah responds, "Hineni, send me." But the key is the sequence.
Exactly. He volunteers before he knows the mission. He signs the contract before reading the terms and conditions.
Which is reckless. It's totally irrational. He doesn't ask, is it hazardous? What's the pay? Will I be popular? He just says, here I am.
The sources define Hineni as identity yielded before assignment given. It's the ultimate blank check.
A threshold moment where calling becomes worship.
It is. You're saying, I am entirely at your disposal. Send me to the palace or send me to the pit. My answer is yes before the question's even asked.
See, that's where we get stuck. The source material talks about the problem with clarity first. We are obsessed with clarity.
That's the modern trap. We treat God like a consultant. Show me the slide deck, show me the risk analysis, and I'll decide if I'm in.
Which leads to what the authors call conditional commitment.
Right, we're mitigating risk.
Yeah.
But Hineni offers presence without guarantees. It's saying, I trust the caller enough to walk into the dark.
It strikes me that demanding clarity is actually a form of arrogance. It implies that if I saw the plan, I would be a better judge of its validity than God is.
Precisely. It keeps you in the driver's seat. Hineni is the act of climbing into the passenger seat.
Okay, so we have this high ancient ideal. But let's land this plane in 2026. We live in a world of personal branding and building your platform. The sources talk about a trap called resume-based faith. How do we spot this?
Resume-based faith is when we start treating our spiritual life like a career ladder. It's subtle, but it's toxic. The primary symptom is equating calling with visibility.
Oh, I feel that. If it's not on Instagram, did it even happen? If I'm not speaking on a stage.
Am I really serving God? Exactly. We look at the metrics. Followers, book deals, church size, podcast downloads. If the numbers are going up, we feel blessed and called.
And if they're flat, we feel like we've missed God's will. It creates this anxiety that we have to make things happen.
The sources call that premature self-assignment. It's when you feel invisible. So you build a platform to make yourself visible instead of waiting for God to assign you.
You force the door open.
Right. And the sources were pretty hard on this platform distortion. The idea that reach replaces relationship. But they gave some really strong counterexamples from Scripture.
That God actually loves obscurity.
He does. We think wide reach means deep impact. But look at Jesus. We focus on the 3 years of public ministry, but he lived for 33 years.
So for 90% of his life, he was
Nobody.
nobody. A carpenter in Nazareth, a town with a bad reputation. He spent decades dealing with clients, fixing tables, paying taxes, utterly hidden.
If he had a modern marketing team, they'd have been losing their minds. We need to build your brand. We need to get you on the Galilean podcast circuit.
Right. But those years of hiddenness were foundational. Or look at Anna and Simeon in the temple. They appear in Luke 2.
Okay.
They served in hiddenness for decades, praying, fasting, waiting. They had zero platform. No one knew who they were. But they were the ones who recognized God when he showed up as a baby.
That's a really crucial point. The source said, roots grow underground.
Yes. Obscurity isn't a punishment, it's soil. God often assigns obscurity to form character. Visibility without formation. When the storms come, you collapse.
Resume-based faith seeks the fruit before the root. That hits home. I think a lot of us are trying to staple fruit onto a tree that has no roots.
That's a vivid image, and it doesn't last.
So if I'm listening to this and I'm realizing, wow, I have definitely been operating on resume logic, what do I do?
Yeah.
The sources provide a practical application, an exercise called rewriting your calling narrative.
This is a powerful exercise, but I'll warn you, it's not comfortable. It's all about detaching your identity from your function.
Walk us through it. Step 1. List it all. Write down your titles, your roles, your achievements. Manager, parent, deacon, award winner. Whatever makes you feel valid.
Okay, got the list.
Step 2. Strip them away. Imagine they're all gone. You lose the job, the kids move out, the injury ends the running career, the accolades are forgotten.
That is terrifying. That feels like death.
It is a type of death, the death of the ego.
Yeah.
Because step 3 is the question, who am I before God now?
And if the answer is nobody or a failure?
Then your identity was in the resume, not the name. You were anchoring your soul in things that could be taken away.
So the goal is to get to a place where the answer is what?
The goal is to realize that your primary calling to belong to God remains completely intact even if the assignment disappears. You are still called by name. You are still His.
And when you can stand in that truth, you're free.
Free. You can pick the titles back up and use them, but they don't own you anymore. You can be a CEO, but if you lose the company, you don't lose yourself.
That is freedom. The source suggests writing a personal Hineni statement to solidify this.
Yeah. A statement of availability. It shifts the focus from what am I achieving to who am I available to?
Give us an example.
It might be something like, here I am, Lord, in this cubicle, not for promotion, but to honor you. Or, here I am in my home, tired and frustrated, but available to love these people you've given me.
Not for promotion, but to honor you. That's a massive shift. It takes the pressure off.
Exactly. It moves you from the anxiety of the resume to the freedom of the name. It turns your daily life into an altar rather than a stage.
This has been such a refreshing deep dive. It really flips the script.
It does. It's countercultural, even within the church.
So to recap, we started with the pressure of the corporate model credentials first. We saw how God flips that upside down with Moses and Abraham relationship first.
We learned that Hineni means surrendering the need for a map and trusting the guide.
And we confronted the trap of thinking our platform is our purpose.
And we landed on the hard truth that obscurity is where the roots grow.
Before we wrap up, there's one final insight from the sources I found really encouraging. Because, let's be honest, I'm probably going to mess this up. I'm going to fall back into resume building.
We all do. But the sources remind us that God calls names again and again. It's a rhythm. Look at Peter.
Peter is the ultimate resume disaster.
He really is. He was called, he followed, he walked on water, and then he failed miserably. He denied Jesus 3 times. If you were an employee, he'd be fired for cause.
Security would be escorting him out with a cardboard box.
Immediately. But after the resurrection, Jesus comes back, he meets Peter on the beach, and calls him again. Feed my sheep.
The call remains because the relationship remains.
You can't ruin your calling because it's based on God's covenant, not your performance review.
That is good news for anyone who feels like they've messed up their assignment or missed their window. The caller is still there.
He is. And he's still calling your name.
So we want to leave you with a provocative thought from the source material. This is something to chew on as you go about your week.
The question is this. If God were to call your name today without explaining the assignment,
would your sense of identity be sufficient to answer?
Or have you learned to respond only when your resume feels adequate?
Think about that. Are you waiting to feel ready, or are you willing to just be called? Thanks for diving deep with us today. See you next time.